To the galaxy, Earth was nothing. A small blue planet hidden at the edge of a spiral arm, circling an ordinary sun. It was forgotten, ignored, and often erased from maps. The great empires called it a backwater world, unworthy of attention. When alien diplomats spoke of Earth, they spoke with mockery. A place of noise and smoke. A nest of primitive creatures who fight their own kind for dirt. To them, humans were weak, short-lived, and forever divided. But the truth was far more dangerous. Beneath the noise of cities and the arguments of nations, something was happening. Humanity was changing. Quietly, slowly, and in ways no alien spy could fully understand. The first watchers came in secret. They sent cloaked drones into orbit. They hovered above clouds and oceans, studying the world below. From their view, Earth was chaotic. People shouting in streets, countries preparing for war, and rockets struggling to escape gravity. Yes, the watchers laughed. They are nothing. They will never matter. And yet doubt lingered, because every time they saw humans fall, they also saw humans rise again. Wars destroyed cities, but new ones were built taller. Disasters struck villages, but survivors rebuilt stronger. Even in defeat, there was fire in human eyes. One alien observer whispered, almost to himself, "If they ever unite, they will be more dangerous than we can imagine." Life on Earth went on, unaware of alien eyes. Farmers tilled soil. Children chased each other in the streets. Soldiers trained, believing the next war would be against another nation, not against an empire from the stars. But in hidden places, something stirred. In a mountain facility far from any city, engineers tested strange engines that glowed blue. In frozen caves of the north, scientists bent light into weapons. Beneath oceans, silent bases listened for voices not of Earth. Ordinary people did not know. They dreamed of a better future, but behind locked doors, their leaders were preparing for a truth they could not yet speak. We are not alone. Then came the night when Earth answered back. The watchers were listening as always when it happened. A pulse, sharp and strong, cutting through the void. A signal unlike anything humans were supposed to create. It was not a cry for help. It was not a message of peace. It was a warning. The code carried blueprints for weapons that should have taken centuries to design. It held calculations for faster-than-light jumps, equations that matched the greatest empires. It spoke of fleets not yet built, but already imagined in human minds. The watchers froze. They replayed the signal again and again. This was no accident. This was intent. Impossible, one said, voice shaking. They should not have this knowledge, said another. And yet the signal was real. The laughter that had once filled their meetings was gone. On the ground, humans were unaware. A man sold fruit in a crowded market. A woman lit a candle in a darkened room. Children studied books, never knowing that far above them, entire civilizations now debated their existence. Some alien leaders demanded action. Destroy Earth now before they grow, they said. Others argued, wait, they are still divided. They cannot threaten us yet. But all of them felt something they had not felt for centuries. Fear. Meanwhile, Earth continued to move, restless as always. Nations still argued in the open, but behind closed doors, generals shook hands in secret. Rivalries remained, but for the first time in history, whispers of unity began to spread. Factories produced weapons that no public news ever reported. New starships were tested not under the sun, but in the shadows of the moon. Satellites blinked strange codes, forming a hidden net around the planet. The galaxy saw chaos, but chaos was only the surface. Beneath it, something new was rising. Humans had always been underestimated. They were short-lived, but that meant they burned brighter. They were divided, but that meant they learned to adapt. They were fragile, but that fragility forced them to fight harder than anyone else. The Watchers wrote their final report with heavy hands. Do not be fooled by their wars. Do not be fooled by their divisions. If this species unites, they will shake the stars. The council laughed again, but this time it was nervous laughter, because far away on a forgotten world, the impossible was already beginning. And soon, the galaxy would discover what Earth was truly capable of. The galaxy wanted proof. The strange signal from Earth had shaken many councils, but not all believed it. Some thought it was fake. Others said it was luck or stolen knowledge from some forgotten race. So the decision was made: send the Watchers. They came in silence. Their ships were cloaked, their engines humming like ghosts. They entered Earth's orbit at night, hidden behind the shadow of the moon. From there, they released thousands of tiny drones, each no bigger than a bird, each armed with eyes sharper than any telescope. The Watchers wanted to see humanity with their own eyes. At first, they found exactly what they expected. Earth looked chaotic. Nations argued in great halls. Leaders shouted at each other through glowing screens. Protests filled streets, and armies marched across deserts in endless drills. "See," one Watcher whispered, "they are divided. They are weak." But the more they watched, the more uneasy they became. Because in every corner of this noisy world, there was also something else. Something alien hearts could not understand. A mother shielding her child during a storm. Firefighters running into burning buildings. Soldiers standing their ground when the battle was already lost. "Why do they fight when they know they cannot win?" another Watcher asked. No one could answer. One drone hovered over a battlefield in a distant land. The humans there had only crude weapons compared to galactic standards. Their machines broke down, their supplies were thin. Yet, they fought with such fury that the Watcher assigned to the drone trembled. "They fight each other as if every battle is their last," the Watcher said. "What if they turn that fire on us?" The others laughed uneasily, but the thought remained like a shadow. Days turned into weeks. The Watchers gathered mountains of data, human DNA, human languages, human history. They studied old books that told of wars and legends, and new screens that showed endless inventions. What they discovered disturbed them. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most intelligent, but they were something far more dangerous. They were stubborn. When disease struck, they fought it until medicine was born. When nature destroyed their cities, they rebuilt higher. When enemies crushed them, they returned with greater force. To the Watchers, this was not normal. Most species surrendered to fate. Humanity refused. One evening, a Watcher ship floated silently above the Atlantic Ocean. Its commander looked down at the glittering cities, the highways like glowing veins, the endless ships crossing waters. He spoke slowly, almost as if confessing to himself. "They are still small, but they dream of being giants." Another replied, "Dreams mean nothing." The commander turned to him. "You are wrong. Dreams are the most dangerous weapon they have." The Watchers saw even more when they turned their attention to secret places. Deep under deserts, they found hidden labs where engines pulsed with impossible energy. In the frozen south, they saw soldiers testing weapons that bent light. And in orbit, they detected satellites sending coded signals no nation admitted to owning. This was not chaos. This was preparation. The Watchers grew uneasy. Could it be true? Was Earth not as weak as it seemed? The first council report from the Watchers spread fear across the galaxy. Humanity is primitive in tools but advanced in will. They are divided, but that division hides unity we do not yet understand. Their wars are not weakness. Their wars are training. Some council members laughed at the report. "They exaggerate," they said, but others grew silent, because every great empire remembered a lesson. It is never the obvious enemy who destroys you. It is always the one you ignored. Back on Earth, humans still lived as if nothing had changed. A boy dreamed of flying to the stars. A scientist stared at numbers she did not yet understand. A soldier polished his weapon, ready for a battle he did not yet know was coming. They had no idea that above them, unseen eyes studied their every move. And the Watchers, those who had come with laughter in their hearts, were no longer laughing. They were whispering the same words over and over again. "If this world ever unites, we are doomed." The reports of the Watchers spread quietly through the galaxy. At first, many leaders refused to believe them. Earth? A backwater planet? Impossible, they shouted. They fight each other like animals. How can such creatures ever challenge us? But rumors are like fire. Once they begin, they spread faster than anyone can stop. And soon, whispers of Earth reached even the farthest corners of the stars. The first real spark came at the border. A small alien patrol ship detected an unknown vessel near one of their colonies. It was human, an old freighter that should not have been there. The aliens laughed. Such ships were slow, clumsy, and no threat at all. But when they moved to capture it, something unexpected happened. The freighter fought back. Not with powerful weapons. Not with massive shields. But with strategy. The humans used asteroids as cover, slingshotting around them with skill no alien pilot expected. The ship fired improvised weapons, missiles built from mining tools, and managed to damage the patrol ship before escaping into the void. The aliens were stunned. "How can primitives outmaneuver us?" one officer shouted. "They should not even know how to fight in space." The story spread like wildfire. In space stations, smugglers told tales of humans who could turn scraps into weapons. In markets, traders whispered about Earth ships that fought like predators, biting even when cornered. And in the halls of power, generals began to frown. Perhaps, one admitted, we underestimated them. Back on Earth, the incident was celebrated in secret. The crew of the freighter returned home quietly, but their names became whispers in hidden rooms. They had done more than damage an alien patrol. They had proven something far greater. Humans could fight. And that truth sent fear racing through the galaxy. The Watchers, still circling Earth, watched with even greater unease. They studied human history more closely now. They read about ancient wars, small armies defeating great empires through clever tactics. They read about desperate battles where humans refused to surrender, even when facing certain death. And they began to understand. Humanity's strength was not in its weapons. It was not in its numbers. It was in its will. A will that said, we do not kneel. Another spark came when a group of alien merchants tried to exploit Earth. They sold faulty technology at high prices, thinking humans were too ignorant to notice. But the humans learned quickly. They tore apart the devices, studied the parts, and within weeks built new machines that were better than the originals. The merchants fled in shame. The lesson was clear. Humanity did not just use technology. They improved it. This frightened the galaxy even more than battleships. In a quiet chamber on the Galactic Council world, a debate began. They are still small, one elder insisted. Their fleets are weak. Their worlds are few. Crush them now before they grow. But another elder shook his head. Do you not see? Every time we strike them, we teach them. Every blow makes them stronger. Every lesson we give, they learn faster than we expect. The council hall fell silent. For the first time in centuries, they faced a species that did not fit into any pattern. Most races rose slowly with steady progress. Humanity was different. They stumbled, they fell, they bled, and then they leapt forward like fire. On Earth, ordinary people still lived in ignorance of these whispers. A farmer watered his fields. A teacher explained stars to her students. A child built a small rocket, dreaming of one day reaching the moon. But behind closed doors, Earth's leaders were already preparing. They read the reports of alien encounters. They listened to the stories of merchants and soldiers. And they knew the truth. The galaxy was beginning to fear them. And fear could be used as a weapon. In the skies above, the Watchers sent one final report. These humans are unlike any species we have known. They turn weakness into strength. They turn failure into fuel. They are a storm waiting to rise. If they ever unite, the galaxy will not be ready. The message was received in silence. No laughter followed this time, because even the proudest empires knew the truth. Sparks, if ignored, can grow into fire. And the fire of humanity was only beginning to burn. The sparks of fear were no longer whispers. Across the galaxy, more voices began to say the same thing. If Earth is left alone, it will grow dangerous. So a plan was made. A small strike, nothing too large. Just enough to remind humanity of its place. The target was a new colony, a young outpost on a distant moon where humans mined rare metals. It was small, fragile, defended by only a handful of ships. To the alien commanders, it looked like the perfect lesson. "Strike them hard," one council member ordered. "Show them their limits. Break their spirit before it rises." The fleet arrived without warning. Sleek alien cruisers tore through the stars, their weapons glowing like suns. They fell upon the human outpost with thunder, confident that resistance would last only minutes. But minutes passed, then hours, and the humans did not kneel. The first defense ships that rose from the colony were outdated, slow compared to the alien cruisers. But the human pilots fought like wolves. They used the moon's craters as cover, darting out with sudden attacks, striking where shields were weakest. For every ship destroyed, another human voice called out, "Hold the line. Do not give up." The aliens destroyed many, yes, but they began to realize something troubling. The humans did not fight to survive. They fought to win. Inside the colony itself, miners and engineers dropped their tools and picked up weapons. Workshops turned into armories. Drilling machines were fitted with explosives and sent rolling into battle. Even children carried supplies to the defenders, refusing to flee. An alien commander watched from his cruiser and muttered in disbelief, "They are not soldiers, yet they fight like soldiers." Another officer answered quietly, "They fight like people who have nothing left to lose." Then came the moment that changed everything. From the shadow of the moon, new ships emerged, ships the aliens had never seen before. Sleek, black, sharp-edged vessels that carried no flag. Their weapons burned brighter, their movements faster, their tactics far more advanced. The aliens panicked. What are those? They cannot have built these already. But they had. The Black Fleet, the first true human war fleet, had been waiting in silence, hidden in secret docks around the moon. The strike on the colony had been expected. Humanity had laid a trap. The battle turned swiftly. Human ships cut through alien cruisers with railguns that fired metal at impossible speeds. Drones swarmed like insects, overwhelming shields and disabling engines. And every time an alien thought victory was near, another human trick turned the tide. Within hours, the proud alien fleet was broken. Some ships fled. Others were captured. Many were destroyed, their wrecks scattering across the void. The colony lived, and humanity had won its first true victory against the galaxy. News spread faster than light. In marketplaces, aliens whispered, "The Backwater world fought off a fleet." In military halls, generals frowned and studied human tactics. In council chambers, silence fell heavy. The attack that was meant to humble Earth had done the opposite. It had awakened it. On Earth, the news was celebrated not with cheers in public, but with determination in secret. Leaders met in hidden rooms. Engineers worked without sleep. Soldiers trained with fire in their eyes. For the first time, the nations of Earth looked at each other and said the same words. "We must stand together. The galaxy will come again." And so, walls that had stood for centuries began to fall. Rivals shook hands. Enemies shared plans. Old flags lowered, and a new banner was whispered about. A single banner, not for one nation, but for all of humanity. The Watchers, still circling above Earth, wrote a final line in their report. "We came to measure them. We came to test them. But every test only makes them stronger. The fire we tried to control is spreading. Humanity has begun to burn, and soon the galaxy will feel their flames." That night, as the stars glimmered above the quiet Earth, no one on the planet knew how much had already changed. Farmers still worked their fields. Children still played in streets. Workers still dreamed of tomorrow. But high in orbit, in black warships cloaked against the sky, humanity had already taken its first step into becoming something new. Something the galaxy had not seen in centuries. Not victims. Not servants. Not a backwater people. But a rising power. And with the first retaliation complete, the galaxy finally understood. Earth would not kneel. The victory at the colony spread across Earth like wildfire. For centuries, humans had looked to the stars with wonder. Now, for the first time, they looked with pride. Against all odds, a forgotten planet had stood against an empire and survived. But deep down, humanity knew the truth. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. In secret halls beneath mountains, leaders gathered. Old enemies sat across from one another. Generals who once fought against each other now shared maps and strategies. Flags of many nations hung on the walls, but they seemed smaller now, less important. One voice spoke. If we stay divided, we will fall. The galaxy will not forgive what we did. They will come with greater fleets, and they will burn Earth. Another voice answered, then let us stand as one, not as nations, not as rivals, but as humanity. The room fell silent. For the first time in history, the impossible words were spoken. One planet, one people, one fight. Factories across the world roared to life. Engines thundered, forges blazed, and steel flowed like rivers. Ships rose not for one country, but for all mankind. Scientists once separated by borders now shared knowledge freely. What one could not build alone, all built together. It was messy, yes. Humans still argued, still disagreed, still clashed over pride. But above all the noise, a new truth grew stronger. The survival of Earth mattered more than the survival of any flag. The first symbol of unity came in orbit. A massive space station was constructed, larger than anything ever built before. It was not owned by one nation, but by all. Workers called it the heart, for it would beat as the center of humanity's new strength. Around it, fleets gathered, old ships refitted, new ships forged. For the first time, a true armada flew under one banner. The banner was simple, a circle of stars, with a single bright Earth in the center. And when it was raised for the first time, soldiers and workers alike whispered the same words. We are not divided anymore. The galaxy watched with unease. Alien spies reported what they saw. Rival nations shaking hands, engineers designing weapons together, leaders giving speeches not about borders, but about survival. This should not be possible, one alien elder muttered. Their kind has always been divided. But another elder whispered the truth. They have found something greater than division. They have found fear. Fear of us. Fear that made them unite. And everyone knew fear could forge the sharpest weapons. Meanwhile, on Earth's streets, the change was felt by ordinary people. A teacher no longer spoke only of her country's history, but of humanity's place in the stars. A soldier trained not for the defense of his border, but for the defense of his planet. Children, once dreaming of flags, now painted the circle of stars and called it their future. Yet unity did not come without cost. There were still arguments, still mistrust. Some leaders hesitated, afraid of losing power. Some nations resisted, unwilling to bow to a greater whole. But slowly, stubbornly, humanity pushed forward. For every voice of doubt, there were 10 voices shouting, we will not kneel, not to the galaxy, not to fear, not ever again. And then came the moment that sealed their unity. On the plains of Africa, under a sky filled with stars, a great gathering was held. Leaders of every nation stood before a crowd that stretched farther than the eye could see. Soldiers marched side by side. Scientists carried blueprints of new weapons. Children waved the banner of Earth. One leader stepped forward and spoke. His words were simple, but they shook the hearts of all. We were once many. Today we are one. The galaxy wanted us to fear. Instead, they gave us strength. From this day forward, no one stands alone. From this day forward, we fight together. We are humanity. The roar of the crowd echoed across the night. High above, the Black Fleet circled the planet, its ships ready and waiting. Pilots swore oaths not to one nation, but to Earth itself. And in the silence of space, the watchers who still lingered wrote their report with trembling hands. The humans have done what no other world has done. They have broken their walls. They have become one. We feared their will when divided. Now we must fear their unity. Earth, once forgotten, once mocked, now stood united for the first time in history. And the galaxy, so confident, so proud, began to feel something it had not felt in centuries. Not anger, not hatred, but fear. Because unity had forged a new weapon, and its name was humanity. The galaxy could no longer ignore Earth. The colony had survived. The Black Fleet had risen. Humanity had united. What was once called a backwater world was now a rising storm. So the Council of Empires made their choice. They would not wait for humanity to grow stronger. They would crush Earth now with overwhelming force. Fleets began to gather. Dozens of empires, each bringing their warships. Carriers large as cities, cruisers armed with weapons that had shattered worlds before. Never in centuries had so many ships gathered for one purpose: the destruction of a single planet. One alien commander laughed bitterly. They do not understand mercy, so we will give them none. Another whispered, uneasy, then why do we feel fear when we speak their name? But no one answered. Orders had already been given. On Earth, the warning came quickly. Hidden satellites saw the fleets moving. Spies returned with whispers of what was coming. And yet, there was no panic. There was preparation. In shipyards, the Black Fleet expanded, new vessels rising from oceans and deserts. In underground bases, weapons never seen before were pulled from secrecy. Soldiers drilled in endless lines, and pilots swore their oaths beneath the banner of Earth. For the first time, humanity did not prepare for survival. They prepared for victory. In orbit above the Heart Station, the fleets of Earth assembled. They were fewer in number, smaller in size, but sharper in spirit. Every ship carried the weight of an entire planet. Every pilot knew, if they failed, Earth would burn. In the command chamber of the Heart, leaders stood together. Their voices were quiet, but their eyes were unshaken. They want us to kneel, one said. Then let us stand taller than ever, another replied. The day of battle came. The alien armada arrived like a wall of fire, blotting out the stars. Thousands of ships spread across the void, their weapons glowing like suns. It was a sight meant to break human courage. But the humans did not tremble. From the Heart came a single signal broadcast to every ship, every soldier, every citizen. We do not kneel. The first clash shook the skies. Alien cruisers opened fire, beams of light tearing through space. Human ships dodged, weaving through the storm with impossible maneuvers. Drones swarmed forward, exploding against shields, opening gaps for railguns to strike. Every alien expected the humans to break in minutes. Instead, they fought with a fury that defied reason. Small ships sacrificed themselves to protect larger ones. Damaged vessels rammed into enemies, turning wreckage into weapons. It was not order that carried humanity. It was will. Then came the moment no one in the galaxy forgot. From behind the moon, a shadow rose. At first it looked like a mountain drifting through space. Then lights blazed across its surface, revealing its true form. It was a dreadnought. Not alien-made, but human, forged in secret shipyards, its frame larger than any vessel humanity should have been capable of building. Its cannons glowed with energy, its hull bristling with weapons, its engines roaring like thunder. The aliens stared in disbelief. They should not have built this. But they had. The ship fired. One alien carrier, massive as a city, vanished in a storm of light. The tide of battle shifted. Where aliens saw numbers, humans saw opportunity. Where aliens saw chaos, humans saw freedom. They fought in ways no empire expected, turning asteroids into weapons, blinding sensors with debris, striking where no one thought possible. For the first time, the galaxy realized this was not a weak race. This was not a backwater people. This was humanity unleashed. Hours passed. Wreckage floated in endless silence. Fires burned across the void. And still the humans fought. The alien armada, once confident, began to break. Some ships fled. Others hesitated. Commanders shouted for courage, but courage was gone. Because every alien heart now carried the same thought. If this is what they are now, what will they become tomorrow? On Earth, people watched the skies with held breath. They saw flashes of light, heard the rumble of cannons echo even through the atmosphere. They prayed, they wept, they waited. And when the message finally came, the enemy flees, the day is ours. Cheers rose across the world like thunder. The watchers, those who had once laughed, sent their final words to the council. This was the turning point. Humanity has faced the galaxy's fury and did not break. From this day forward, they will not be forgotten. They will not be ignored. They will be feared. Earth had stood against the greatest fleets of the galaxy, and it had not knelt. The turning point had come. The galaxy would never be the same again. The battle was over. The stars above Earth still glowed, but now their light was broken by drifting wrecks. Alien warships, once proud, now floated silent, torn apart by fire and steel. Human ships, scarred and battered, circled slowly like wolves who had survived the hunt. The galaxy had sent its strength to crush Earth. But Earth had not been crushed. It had endured. It had risen. It had won. On the shattered bridge of a fleeing cruiser, an alien officer whispered what many now believed. They should not exist like this. They should not be capable. And yet, they are. His commander said nothing. Fear had stolen his voice. Back on Earth, celebrations shook the planet. Cities erupted with light, voices shouting into the night sky. Workers who had built the ships cheered. Families who had prayed for their children wept with relief. Soldiers stood taller, knowing they had fought not for one nation, but for all of humanity. But deep in command rooms and hidden bases, Earth's leaders did not celebrate for long. They knew the truth. This was only one battle. The galaxy would return, and next time it would come with fury. So, while the people cheered, the leaders prepared. The alien council gathered in silence. No one laughed now. No one mocked the Backwater planet. One elder slammed his claw against the table. How did this happen? How did primitives defeat the greatest fleet we have assembled in centuries? Another replied quietly, because they are not like us. When we lose, we retreat. When they lose, they learn. When we bleed, we hide. When they bleed, they rise stronger. The chamber grew colder. The truth was too heavy to ignore. The watchers sent their final report. We warned you. Humanity is not weak. Their strength is not only in ships or weapons. It is in their will. They fight with hearts that refuse to kneel. They will rebuild faster than you believe. They will strike harder than you expect. If they are feared now, imagine what they will be in 100 years. The words spread like a storm. Traders whispered them in markets. Soldiers repeated them in barracks. Leaders read them in secret chambers. And all across the galaxy, species who once mocked Earth now spoke the same word in hushed tones. Humans, not as a joke, not as an insult, but as a warning. On Earth, the Black Fleet drifted in formation. Some ships were heavily damaged, their hulls scorched, their crews exhausted. Yet even in their broken state, they looked powerful, untouchable. Pilots painted symbols of victory on their ships. Engineers worked day and night to repair and rebuild. And from every corner of the world, new recruits volunteered, eager to join the fight. No longer did anyone say, "Why should we fight?" Now they said, "How can we fight harder?" Human unity deepened. Borders that once divided nations now blurred into irrelevance. Scientists who had once competed now raced together to push further, faster. New technologies were born overnight. Weapons grew sharper. Engines grew faster. And above all, a single thought grew in every human heart. We will not only survive, we will rise. But in the galaxy, fear took root. Merchants changed their trade routes, avoiding human space. Commanders warned their crews never to provoke an Earthship. Councils argued endlessly about what to do. Some called for another war. Others whispered of peace. Yet none dared strike again, because in their memories still burned the image of a single human dreadnought rising from behind the moon, blotting out the stars. Generations of empires had believed they were untouchable. But now, when they looked at Earth, they saw something terrifying. Not strength alone, not unity alone, but something deeper, something they had lost long ago. Hope that burned like fire. Hope that turned weakness into strength, defeat into victory, and hope they realized could be more dangerous than any weapon. In quiet chambers, alien voices whispered, "If this is what they are now, what will they be tomorrow? If this is how they fight with only one world, what happens when they spread to 100? Or 1,000? The answers were too terrible to imagine. On Earth, no one heard those whispers. Farmers still tilled fields. Children still played under the stars. Workers still built in noisy factories. Life continued as it always had. But above them, in orbit and beyond, a shadow had fallen across the galaxy. A shadow not of fear forced upon humanity, but of fear humanity had placed upon the galaxy. Earth was no longer a forgotten backwater. It was no longer weak. It was no longer silent. It was the world that had refused to kneel. And now every empire, every ruler, every soldier in the galaxy carried the same thought when they closed their eyes. The humans are coming.